Hi guys, welcome to Passport to Self. I'm your co-host Ada.
This is Bam Bam, and I am Luar, and we're here to explore what it means to take up space.
Please join us for this first episode where we're going to explore our origin story.
Yeah, like why we created this podcast, from the personal to the collective. Are you ready to take up space with us?
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
You ready?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, this is Passport to Self podcast.
I know. Isn't it crazy?
It's crazy.
It's finally happening.
It's happening.
In all of like 2 weeks.
So excited. No, come on. It's been a few months that we're like boiling, cooking this idea,
Yeah,
right?
it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
But it's finally coming to life.
So do you want to give people some context of like who we are and why this came to life? I don't know. Maybe that's a lot in one go.
Yeah, I mean,
Go with it.
try. Hello, world. My name is Ada. I am a career marketer. Started out in branding. I'm from the States, and I've gallivanted around the world, you can say, for quite some time. But now I live a good amount of my time in Mexico City, which is how I met you, in a very international context, if you will. And I think what happens when you talk to people from around the world, it just gives you this automatic sense of perspective and point of comparison, which sometimes you don't get when you live in the country that you grew up in. And, you know, maybe that is the country that you've only ever known. Mm-hmm. And so from, I think, these experiences of traveling abroad, for me, as someone who's very curious and deeply interested in like the human psyche and the human existence, there's something so beautiful in having these types of conversations to help better understand ourselves and each other in this weird thing called life, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's how we also connected.
You mean in real life?
Like
or you mean around the podcast?
Around the podcast, but I think also in real life. I think this podcast was born out of our personal, genuine interest in talking about humans and talking about why we do things the way we do. And I think between ourselves, we just share so many different levels of context and upbringing and background and culture. And there's just so much to share and so much to talk about. And I think part of our selfish hope is that what we talk about between you and me actually resonates with those who listen to this podcast. So I think that's why we're here today. But I'm curious to hear what you think.
Where do I start?
What's your name?
It's true. Hi, I'm Luar.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
So it's funny because at this point in time, we are so close. Like, you're definitely one of my best friends and we know each other very well. So we have to be very conscious about how we speak and like not make this an inside joke, right? And include everybody in the conversation. So I'm Luar. I'm a documentary filmmaker and photographer, and I guide people through transformative journeys to find their authenticity. I believe that storytelling has the power to change the world. But I also believe that the change we want to see in the world starts within. Mm-hmm. So for me, the most powerful story of all is the one we tell ourselves. My personal growth journey has been about learning self-love, about completely redefining the relationship I have with myself, through that taking responsibility on the relationship I have with others, right? Because really, the relationship we have with ourselves reflects how we relate with others and how we relate with the world. And that's why I believe that inner work is so important. It's so valuable, and it comes down to narratives and to stories. And yeah, that's what I explore in all my different expressions. And it's also what brings me here, you know, to this podcast, because we were having these brainstorm conversations of all these different topics that feel close to home for us as foreigners living in a different country. I mean, you mentioned a little bit about your background. I grew up moving around many different countries and 3 different continents. When people ask me where I'm from, I don't know how to respond. I hate that question. It makes me so uncomfortable. I feel like, where I'm from in this moment in time is where I'm based, which has changed along the years. And also it's where my heart is. So in this moment in time, I'm from Mexico. Am I Mexican? No.
Chilanga.
I just got my permanent residency. It's very exciting. And all the Mexicans in my life are really like making it very clear to me that for them, I am Mexican. But that's the Mexican way. And it's also why I've felt so at home here from day one. The welcoming nature of this culture has just embraced me and made me feel at home like in no other place. I have made friendships and built relationships here like at no other point in my life. I think there is also the context in which the point in time on your personal journey and when you arrive to a place, right? So these things aren't disconnected. And I think we will probably unpack a lot of these different themes through this podcast. But for me, the question underneath Passport to Self is, how do we take up space? And I think the reason that question has come up is because in my journey that I've just shared of self-love, of transformation, a lot of death and rebirth. I'm a Scorpio for all the astrology geeks out here. So this is definitely like part of my path. And I think really part of everybody's path. And that's the point. We're always in transformation, but also I believe that the world is a mirror. It's a reflection of what's going on inside. And I think we're living through really turbulent times, but also it's not a coincidence. I think that if we were born in this point in time and we are living through this moment, it's for a reason. And I think it's time to call in our higher self for all of us. I really believe that. My skin is getting like pointy just from saying that. I think that it's time to tap into that inner healer for all of us and show up for ourselves and for each other in a new way, reconnecting with our ancestral wisdom. But also, I was thinking about that this morning, like, what does ancestral wisdom mean? Because yes, I am talking about indigenous wisdom in particular, but also all of us were indigenous at some point in time. We're all indigenous of some culture in terms of our lineage. And so this exploration of how we take up space, it's about yes, how we take up space in the world, in the physical world outside of me. But again, that's only a reflection of what's going on inside. And I think that's why it's Passport to Self, because I was telling you this the other day, but passports for me are this representation of something that I actually don't like. I have 2 passports myself. And for me, what they represent, it's this concept of borders and nationalities and separation. And I don't believe in that. When we look back, we're all immigrants at some point in time. When we look back, we're all in some way nomadic. Like our great ancestors became nomadic, and that's how the societies and civilizations that we know that have brought us to where we are today were built.
I would say we are and were nomadic. Maybe we were nomadic, and I think we're less so now because of how difficult it is to be nomadic in the current modern concept of a nationality, being a nationality, right?
Yeah.
We talked about this as well, where we believe that humans are inherently migratory creatures, similar to, I don't know, birds, let's say. There is something programmed within us to want to move. And I would say that it's actually the exception or not the norm that you want to stay in a place. I think it's a relatively new thing.
Yeah, relative in time.
Relative in time, right?
But so I feel like my brain is all over, and I went with a few different points, but they all really mix in well together under this umbrella of passport to self and this question underneath it, which is how we take up space. So one aspect is this question of what does passport even mean, you know? And to me, when we're saying passport to self, we are reclaiming this idea of permission to take up space, and first and foremost with myself. That's what I think it boils down to, because passports are this government institutional document that is given to us that gives us permission to enter certain places under certain terms. All these limitations, all these borders that create this illusion that we are separate from each other when really we are one. You know, we're one. We're one with nature. We're one with every living being. We're one with a material world that is a manifestation of our energetic world. We're one with the cosmos, with the astrology, with everything. That's my belief. And so I think that when we look at reclaiming that permission to ourselves, we are reconnecting with our ancient wisdom, because ancient wisdom is about tapping in to those codes inside our lineage that have a knowing, that remember the deep truth of just being and existing in this planet Earth, in this incarnation, or whatever you want to call it. And we're carrying that in our blood, in our DNA, in our system. So it's quite interesting for me, this idea of ancient wisdom, not as a way of saying, oh, everything our ancestors did was great, because look where it brought us, but rather as a way of reconnecting with inner truth that is grounded in this earth. And that's why a lot of the conversation of ancient wisdom is connected with indigenous wisdom, because indigenous people are the ones that are protecting the territory, the land, and that they have continued to live in harmony with Mother Nature. And they have this deep understanding of this code that is unity, that is we are one, and all separation is an illusion. So I went on a long tangent because this is what I do. This is why we're here. Welcome to my podcast. I mean, it's funny because, yeah, I literally within my group of friends, I mean, I'm known as the long voice note person, and everybody is like, thank you for the podcast. So it's kind of this inner joke, but yeah, I feel really deeply about this topic, and I've started through my personal transformation journey that I kind of shared a little bit here about. I've started really asking this question, how do we take up space? I started asking it in how I look at the world through my photography, through my filming. I'm also asking it in terms of guiding others. And really, it's a question that, again, comes from within. Like, how do I take up space? Realizing how I've made myself small and how scary it is to shine, you know, and how scary it is to tap into our higher self, because it means grieving, like properly letting go of old identities. And old identities are narratives. They are just mental constructs. And suddenly giving ourselves this permission to be like, oh, I get to choose. I get to build this life. I'm really privileged. And I think it's important to mention privilege in this conversation, because not everybody has the possibility to, like, the privilege to be thinking about these things. So if I'm privileged as I am, that is a responsibility. towards this earth and the collectiveness. And I think that responsibility starts with asking myself that question, like, how do I take up space? So yeah, I have so much more that I can keep digging into.
I mean, that's what these episodes are for.
Yeah.
To talk about each theme. I mean, there's so many things I wanted to respond
Yeah, I was like, what has come up for you instead? Because I can keep going, but I'd rather listen to you.
Yeah, there were several things I think that like stuck with me. And I think one, thank you for bringing it back to why passport to self, because there were so many names that ChatGPT came up with.
Shit.
Damn.
You just revealed our secret.
You can edit this out. Well, there were so many names that we came up with. I mean, for you, it seems like the word passport and self just really resonated on so many levels. And I remember when you were sharing just now about how you have two passports, but you don't necessarily identify with these two passports and what's written. It made me realize that, you know, space defines space in terms of place, right? I am American because I was born on American soil, as an easy example. And I did not grow up in different places around the world, broadly speaking. And it's interesting because I felt like I needed to travel to find myself. And it was this voluntary choice, right, for me to go around the world and figure out what I was really trying to run away from was what I was running towards to, which is understanding who I am through travel and through, again, this point of comparison vis-a-vis other cultures and people, etc. But what's so interesting in your case is travel was not a choice per se. It was handed to you, you know, through the context of your upbringing, which we can get into later. But, you know, you, because of your family and their dynamic, you bopped around the world and you were forced to confront it. Or maybe you weren't forced to, you found your, I mean, you can share your story better than I can. But I think that's so interesting. Like, travel came in different ways to us, and that informed. I feel like you want to say something.
I really want to ask you, I find it so fascinating to hear you speak about it in this way, because even though you grew up in one place, you grew up in a family of like first generation, right? Your parents, like for them, it wasn't the place where they grew up.
No.
So you grew up in a family of immigrants. So to me in itself, that's the TCK, third culture kids. For people who are not familiar with this term, we love it.
TCK!
Because it makes us feel so seen in a world where it's like, people are like, I'm from this place and my parents are from this place and my grandparents are from the same place. Where really actually, you know, if you look at people's DNA, it's actually so much more diverse and interesting than that. But I think even though my upbringing had more this like being uprooted again and again and again and starting fresh again and again and again in places where essentially nowhere did I belong fully, I think your story is more complex than, well, I just grew up in this place and I'm from this place, right?
But I think 100%, I'm not trying to myself smaller.
Yeah. I was just curious listening to you speak about it like that, because I don't think of you that way.
Sure. You know? No, my point is your literal physical space that you grew up in the country that you grew up, in the countries, I should say. Again, I'm like not sharing a lot of context, but you've lived in a lot of countries.
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily have nationalities, i.e. passports, in those countries that you grew up in.
No.
And the nationality that you actually have, you have very little connection to.
Yes and no.
Yeah, but yeah, exactly. Yes and no. And I find it's just so complicated. And I don't mean it in a bad way. It's just, it is complex. It is rich.
It's
and
deep.
It is deep. You know, it is nuanced.
Yeah.
And in my case, is like my story is not at a surface level as nuanced as yours, because at the end of the day, I only have one passport. But I have multiple identities. I'm Chinese American, for those who don't know. And my parents are first generation. And, you know, China is not a monolith. You know, Mandarin is not my mother tongue, as an example. And And so, yeah, I have these layers of identity. But it's just so interesting because mine is dual, which is, I think, is like an easier thing to handle, like for the world to handle, right? But I think what's so fascinating in your case is like the world that was handed to you, or like the environment that you grew up in, this concept of identity through space was something that you kind of had to define for yourself.
Ooh.
You get what I'm saying? Like, you were forced into this situation. You're like, okay, what do I do? Whereas I wasn't necessarily forced in that sense. It was almost like it was always told to me. You get what I'm saying? So like the world would tell me I'm Chinese. There's nothing like my posterity, okay, will never be given. I mean, provided that they still look Asian, they will never not avoid that question of like, where are you really from? Which is like a whole podcast in itself, as you know. You know, because, you know, let's say I have a kid and that kid was born in Mexico. Are they still Mexican? Like, or are they Mexican and something else? You know, it's always that interesting immigrant identity of your ethnicity doesn't match with the nationality or like the soil in which you were born in and grew up in. And so it creates this like head bender, like people cannot digest, right? You are told by the world what you are, but you are different because of, not in a bad way, but in the sense that, not in a bad way, but in the sense that you get to choose, weirdly, how you share that story, right? At least growing up, right?
I love that you see it that way. It's almost like this reclamation of freedom, like I get to choose. And I don't think I ever related with it in that way. And that's kind of the beauty. And it, again, to kind of bring it back to why we're doing this podcast, those are the narratives, right? Like for me, it's always this really limiting feeling, the opposite of freedom, especially when I'm being asked and it feels like people want me to give them a bite-sized answer. They want something easy to understand. And I cannot tell you the amount of times that I have been like interrogated by, just, I'm not talking about immigration officers. I'm talking about just people who ask me where I'm from. And when I respond, so my most recent response that I've adopted in the last few years is, I don't identify from one place. But people are not satisfied with that answer. People will be like, yeah, but where are you from? Where were you born? And the place where I was born, I was only there for 5 months and then we left, and I don't even have nationality from there and my parents aren't from there. So it's quite irrelevant, the place where I was born. The story is longer than that, and I'm not going to enter all the details right now, although I'm really happy to share if it's relevant in the conversation. But I feel like we have so much to talk about. And it's really interesting because you just framed it as a choice. What I heard when you were speaking about your story was also choice. It's like the other person's perspective. And that, to me, highlights where we have those blocks, like those narratives that are actually like blocking us in how we relate with the world and how we take up space in this particular topic, for example, you know, because when you shared how you made those choices to go out of your comfort zone, travel the world, change where you live, you've lived in also many different places, lived very like incredible experiences, and ended up being based in Mexico City, like me. So that brings us together, which is great. But that's to me also a story of choice, a story of freedom.
100%.
Right? But you were speaking about the lack of choice, in that people will always like identify you as, but where are you really from kind of thing, even in the US, which is where you are from, like according to you, I think. So I think that's really interesting. And there is so much in there.
Yeah, there's just like episodes of life, right? Like chapters in life or seasons in life, as I like to say. And I think what I was trying to get at is growing up, my identity was given to me, if that makes sense. And I voluntarily left where I came from, so to speak, as a Chinese American in the States, went out into the world and had to define myself for myself.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that's what this is really about.
Yeah.
This podcast is how do you define yourself through your space or spaces, whether that space was given to you, chosen by yourself. That's the whole goal.
And also, what does it mean define? And do we really need to define? Like, I think that in itself is like a whole thing, because the reason people are uncomfortable with my response is because I'm not giving them a boxed definition. And it's not just about where you're from. It's also what you do, right? Like we are millennials. We are the, what is it called? Slashy generation? Like,
we're multi-hyphenate.
Multi-hyphenate. And, you know, we are getting more and more comfortable with non-binary ideas. And when I say I don't identify from one place, the people that I feel have always most appreciated that response are queer people. When a queer person asks me where I'm from and I respond this, I see their eyes brightening up, like we see each other. And that's the thing. This is about deconstructing the binary way of thinking, which I think is part of the journey of our generation and where we are at. That's why we're all going through so much transformation, because it's like, whoa, I grew up with all these social constructs. And it's like, oh, actually, I don't have to think about romantic love like this. Oh, actually, I don't have to think about my gender like this. Oh, actually, I don't have to think about my nationality like this. I get to identify with things, with a flag, with a gender, with whatever, if I want to, if it empowers me, hell yeah. But also I get to not identify with anything, and you don't get to tell me what I identify with. And that's so brilliant. Like, I think that's one of the gifts of our generation and of this moment in time. I think it's the biggest gift from the transgender community and from non-binary people, is this questioning of something that people are vehemently like, no, like it has to be that or that. And especially when it comes to our sex, you know, when it comes to our gender, it's a question that really triggers people. But if you dare to look there, it opens infinite possibilities, because it's not just about gender. It's about binary thinking. Everything is in there, all the way in which we're seeing this world. So I just feel super, blessed to be alive in this moment in time, ironically, because, you know, it's easy to fall into a sense of doom, I think, with what's going on.
I agree.
And I think it's much easier to be in doom than to actually like witness what's happening and reclaim how I choose, what perspective, what mindset I have. Whatever is in here, that's the only thing I get to control. I actually have zero control on what's external to me. But if I realize the power of like, wait, the power of my mind, like we can reprogram ourselves to think in different ways, to have a different relationship with ourselves. And suddenly our life changes. Imagine if all of us would do that. Like, if all of us would do that towards our highest expression, I really do believe the world would change. And when I say that, I don't mean like false positivity and we're perfect and we're all good. No, to the contrary.
Toxic positivity even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, actually integrating all of us. And all of us is light and shadow. It's yin yang. It's feminine and masculine. It's the duality of the energy.
Duality, but not binary.
Exactly.
There's a difference.
Exactly.
There's such a difference.
That's exactly it. And I love that, because if you look at nature, nature is our biggest teacher and our biggest reflection, because we are nature too. In nature, there is duality.
You know what I like to say actually about nature? So like, I think as humans, we like to put things as like weird or the exception, right? But in nature, if there's an exception, pues, well, it's normal. Like if it exists, it's normal because it belongs to this earth. Does that make sense?
Like that makes the rule.
Exactly. If it exists, it's normal. But to say that something exists, right? And then you're like, well, that's weird. There's only one of them. And everything else, it looks like this, as an example. It's like, well, that's the weird one. It's not weird because it exists, because it's part of nature. Whatever is a part of nature is normal because that is the world and the rules that we operate in, right? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I always found it really interesting that they're like, oh, you're weird.
Yeah.
And
what is abnormal?
What is abnormal?
What is normal?
What is normal? And I think that's I think for me the difference between like duality and binary. Binary in my head, it's like this switch on and off. And duality, it's this fluid spectrum from one end to this other end, if you want to call it that. And it's really a circle, right, in my head.
Yeah, for me, it's in direct relation to the word transformation. Everything is in transformation all the time. And that's why it's like, if we are not accepting of death, if we're not accepting of the duality of life and death, it starts there, you know? I mean, how taboo it is to talk about death. And
Is it?
yeah, I feel, no? Don't you think so?
I don't know. I enjoy, not in a bad way, but in a philosophical, spiritual way.
Yeah,
I think.
But you say I enjoy, but when I say taboo, I don't mean you, Ada. I mean society. Like people don't want to look at that. People don't want to think about their death. That's what I mean. And that's the same lack of acceptance of also our shadow, like our duality, you know, whatever you want to call it. Like these words, you know, shadow, light, like sometimes they feel really limiting or triggering. And I'm very conscious of that. But it's about the duality in existence and that everything is in constant transformation. Everything is a cycle. Life, death, our monthly cycle as women, the daily cycle for men. Everything is in cycle all the time. And everything is in transformation. We're not meant to just be the same from the moment we are born to the moment we die. And that ties back to this idea of roots. And what does it mean to uproot yourself? What does it mean to be an immigrant? What does it mean to choose to go and live somewhere else, you know? And there's so much to that. It's not, sometimes it's a choice, sometimes it's not a choice, sometimes it's out of privilege, sometimes it's the exact opposite. I think that in embracing the duality and embracing that everything is in transformation all the time, it can actually also be a relief because it means that also everything is temporary. Like people want to latch and have these attachment to each other, to things, to relationships, to situations. But when you let that go, I mean, uncertainty is scary. Being uncomfortable is scary, but it's also where most growth happens.
It's so funny. Everything you're saying is like really speaks to my Buddhist, my Buddhist beliefs. This concept about meditating on death, the concept of the only thing that is real is the present. The other day, I watched this movie, Inside Out 2, and introduces this new emotion, anxiety. And yeah, And what's so interesting is they explained anxiety in a way I've never heard it before. Anxiety is just you fearing for the future. You fearing something that you think is going to happen, right? And people don't talk about anxiety that way, but you're fearing for something or you're worried about something that hasn't happened yet that you think might happen.
Yeah. It's related with attachment to the future.
Attachment to the future, which is what causes a sense of uncertainty.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you're not in the present, which is the only certain thing.
Exactly. And so much of Buddhist teaching is to just focus on the present, because the present is all you really can live in, you know? And the way you stay present is to find the abundance in the world, to find gratitude in the world. And when you focus on that kind of energy, compassion, right, it all kind of is bundled in there. And when you focus on that, suffering will cease, because that is not where you're energetically in. And suffering is tied to anxiety. When you're anxious, you suffer, right?
Just to add to what you just said, when you're anxious, you suffer. And also, essentially, when you're not in the present, you suffer.
Exactly.
Because also when you are living in the past, that's depression. When you're living in the future, that's anxiety. So essentially, you're suffering as long as you're not in the present moment. When you have attachment, when you have expectations, you get disappointment. You have attachment, you get heartbreak and grief. And, you know, it's not that we can like live in an existence where we avoid pain, right? That I think that's the other element of Buddhism that it's really important to point out, because it's not saying if you just only live in the present, you will be perfect all the time and you will be happy. Like happy is this very westernized concept, right?
Yeah.
Bueno,
Yeah.
you go.
No. It's so interesting. I spoke with someone the other day and they were saying how happiness is a secondary emotion to gratitude. It's not something that you should seek immediately, because when you do that, that's like you're seeking the dopamine, you're seeking that hit. But when you're seeking gratitude or abundance, that generates happiness. That is what begets happiness. And I think that really stayed with me, because I think oftentimes in Western ideals or Western concepts, they're like, oh, focus on being happy. But happy is like visually for me a spike. And anything that spikes must go down, you know? Whereas when you're just seeking gratitude, it's like this pleasant like energy that just kind of is a steady hum, you know? That's kind of how I visualize it.
I will challenge that. Maybe it's only the way it's being said, really. I think that even gratitude, if it's something you seek, then that's a trap.
Oh, that's
in
fair.
itself. I think gratitude is a state. When I'm feeling grateful, like really feeling it, it's a state and it feels energetic. It's like I am present with whatever the present moment is gifting me, and I feel grateful. But if you're seeking to be grateful, I think at the end of the day, it's the same trap, because the issue isn't the word, right? It's not gratitude or happiness, like which word is preferable. It's the seeking. Seeking is already this like looking for something outside of the present. But gratitude is in the present if you just tap into it. That's what I mean by state.
Yeah. I think it's probably a semantic, but I'm with you. I'm with you.
That's
because,
why.
like, for me, I understand what you're saying. Seeking is desire, and not all desires are good, right? Or like,
Oof.
that's, I don't know how to, I know. Words are so powerful.
Words
But, like,
are powerful.
Words are powerful. But I understand what you mean about seeking. Seeking has this connotation of being attached to something, right? Like, you are seeking it, you want it, you know? Whereas
I mean, if you seek, it has to be outside of you, but gratitude is inside of you.
But for me,
No?
when I think of the word seek,
Okay.
I think of it as always working on that mindset, right? Like gratitude, to your point, is a state of mind.
Yeah.
And so for me, it is a practice that I encourage everyone to develop, because it gives you perspective and it grounds you to the present.
Oh, I think something key that you said right now is the word practice, which I do believe that because of our social conditioning, because of the noise, like the distractions, the reality in which a lot of us are living, it is actually a practice to be nourished, a practice to be, what's the word I'm looking for?
Whatchamacallit?
Whatchamacallit? A lot of us, I think the journey into gratitude has been through disconnection, through a moment of crisis and suffering and distraction and whatever, the challenge looked like for you. You ended up either being given the advice or by yourself reaching that point of, oh, what if I, for example, make a list of 5 things I'm grateful for? It's an intentional practice, but it can become a state. And I also think that you can't force it, as in, I cannot be grateful without deeply connecting with a sense of gratitude. Otherwise, it's just in the mind. It's not in the heart. Like, I can't pretend gratitude. So what I mean by gratitude when I say like real gratitude is deeply connecting with that sense.
Yeah.
And that is by cultivating, that's the word I was looking for, practice.
Yeah. And, it's funny you say that because I wasn't always a very grateful person. Like, I didn't have that practice. I used to focus. And this is what I was going to say earlier. The word seek can, for me, when I said it, I think initially, I thought of it as focusing on the good that existed in my life and the abundance that I have in my life versus the lack.
Seeking. Yeah. Focusing is very different.
So for me, they're synonymous in this context.
Okay, interesting.
So interesting, right? That's what I meant about, I knew what you were saying is it was like a semantic.
Yeah.
It was just
but I think it's important.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Not to like judge your choice of words, but I think it's like, that's part of the beauty. Like you said the other day, podcasts are inherently anti-short.
We're so anti-short.
Yeah. This is long, in depth.
We like nuance.
Yes.
We thrive in nuance.
And so that's part of the beauty, that we can like pause and enter the semantics of a word, because I think it's not only worth it, I think it's important.
Yeah, language informs your world.
Yeah, and we will make mistakes, and we will also use words and then be challenged about them. And that's part of the beauty of being human, but it's also part of the beauty of taking up the space to actually listen and talk with each other and
question things.
Yeah.
Or come from a place of curiosity.
Yeah, not out of judgment to say,
Exactly.
Bad Ada, you used the word seek. No, not at all. But it's like, oh, if you've used it, and we're already, it's so attached to what we're saying, right?
Yes.
And the only reason I'm making a point of now saying this is also because I think that's part of our values that we're bringing into this podcast for all the episodes. So it's something that I also feel like is nice to share with the listeners, like, this is the vibe.
Yeah, no, but I love that. I love actually having I pride myself in having a very good vocabulary, like, because there's nothing so satisfying as having the right word to describe that specific feeling or that specific nuance. For me, I enjoy it.
I don't pride myself of having a good vocabulary because English isn't my first language.
I know, but we forget language whiz. You speak so many and understand even more, many more.
But I think, yeah, language in itself, I think there's so much.
So much.
This is why we're doing this. This is why we're here. This is so exciting. I can't wait to have all the different conversations. A part of me is like wondering if we can start wrapping up the conversation, because
Same.
Yeah, as we speak, it's like, oh, we're flowing into all these different spaces and it's all relevant. And that's why we're doing a whole podcast and not just like one live talk about it.
Maybe I think the way I would like to summarize it, or have us summarize it, is, what do you hope the listener will take away from this podcast?
Wow. Let me sit with that. It's going to sound like I'm making it about myself for a second, and I'm doing that on purpose. Bear with me. So my name is Luar, and Luar means moonlight in Portuguese. It's a Brazilian name, Amazonian name. It's my given name, you know. I choose if to identify with it or not. But I really do. And why it relates to your question is because the moon doesn't actually produce its own light. Moonlight is a reflection of the sunlight. And so what I hope the listeners take away from this podcast is feeling seen. And for me, I feel like that's my medicine, you know, speaking about myself. I think that it's also my biggest wound.
It's a full episode.
Yeah, it's my biggest wound, and then therefore that's my medicine. And I want, in all the spaces that I create, in all my expressions, and very much here as well, and part of why I felt so excited and motivated to do this and to do this with you is because I want people to feel seen. And I want people to, by feeling seen, have the courage to step into their light and fully loving themselves. And in that, showing up in the world and embodying their highest self, whatever that means. But I feel we all have a medicine, and we are all part of a collective story. It's not about the selfishness, the individuality that we were in before. Neither it's the pleaser, no boundaries. I just completely deny who I am to try to belong. Everything is interconnected. We are all interconnected. And interdependence means my individuality, my transformation into my authenticity, into my full expression, gives also permission to others to do that. And by all of us stepping there, we can transform this world. And I believe that we are being called to do that. I think that it's, again, not a coincidence that we are in this moment in time, in this pivotal time of the planet, where the planet is, you could look at it in doom as complete crisis, or you could look at it as an opportunity to build a new world. Mm-hmm. And I think we're here in this moment in time because we are ready. We're ready to step into our full authenticity and build the world from the ground up, and deconstruct all the oppressive systems and create a reality that is about union and not about separation. So that's my reflection. That's the light that I want to reflect, you know, as Luar. And that's what I hope the listeners will take.
And cut.
How about you?
Honestly, we're super in sync right now. I think for me, it's to help people feel seen. Like that. Those were my immediate words. No, but those were the immediate words when I asked that question, and I was like, "What's mine?" It's to feel seen. I think that's what we want at the end of the day. Like, and I don't take that for granted, because so much of my life I didn't feel seen, you know? And we can get into that later, but when you feel seen and you feel heard, it is like this warm, enveloping, fuzzy feeling of, wow, like I'm not alone in this world. I'm with you. You know, I'm with it. I'm with us. There is an us, you know, when you feel seen.
Exactly.
And there's something so powerful in that, right? And if I can help one person feel seen, that's amazing. That's good energy.
And you do that by you being seen.
Exactly. By being yourself, by being your authentic self, right? And I mean that in the most sincerest of ways. But yeah, like that is something that I would like to help spread into this world.
This is why when I began my answer, I said, it's going to sound like I'm making this about me, but bear with me, because it's almost like I need to make it about me. I need to get into the personal. I need to get uncomfortable and get vulnerable and look inside so that I can step into my light and in that be the medicine for others to do the same. And that's why this is Passport to Self. Thank you for listening, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. I love you.
I love it. And
Thank you so much for listening, guys.
we'd love to hear what you're thinking. Please follow us on all of the channels at Passport to Self Podcast.
And remember to tune in for our next episode.
Whoop, 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 whoop.